The crowds at the Oak Ridge Community Theater had seen all kinds of acts over the years. Magic shows that made children squeal with delight, local bands that rocked the foundations, even dancing dogs that had everyone pulling out their phones to record. But they had never seen anyone quite like Maya Rodriguez. It was a chilly autumn evening when Maya first walked through the doors of the theater. The talent show auditions had been running all day, and the volunteers at the registration table were tired, their smiles a little less bright than they had been that morning. When they saw Maya, their eyebrows raised slightly. She didn't look like most performers. At 43, Maya was neither young nor flashy. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple bun with strands of gray that she never bothered to dye. She wore no makeup, and her hands were rough from years of scrubbing hotel rooms clean. Most noticeable was her walk, a pronounced limp that caused her to lean to one side, the result of an accident many years ago that most people in town had either forgotten or never knew about. "I'd like to sign up," she said quietly, her voice barely audible above the sound of someone playing saxophone in the audition room. "For the talent show." The young man at the table looked up from his phone. "Registration fee is $20, he said, not unkindly, but with the air of someone who had repeated the same words 50 times that day. Maya nodded and reached into her worn purse. She counted out exact change, coins that she had saved from her tips at the hotel. Each quarter and dime represented a small sacrifice. A skipped coffee, a missed bus ride that meant a long walk home. "What's your talent?" the young woman beside him asked as she pushed the form across the table. Maya hesitated. "I sing," she said. Then, almost as an apology, she added, "I write my own songs." The young woman nodded and wrote it down without much interest. Singers were common. Everyone thought they could sing. "The grand prize is $5,000, the young man said, as if Maya might not be aware. "Competition's pretty stiff." Maya's fingers tightened around her purse strap. "I know," she said. $5,000. It wasn't a fortune, but it would make a world of difference. It would cover 3 months of her mother's medical bills and maybe even allow them to fix the leaky roof that had been dripping into buckets all winter. As Maya filled out the form, her mind wandered back to that morning. She had been at Green Meadows nursing home, helping her mother eat breakfast. Elena Rodriguez had once been a force of nature, a woman who worked 2 jobs while raising Maya alone, who could make a meal out of almost nothing, who never missed a parent-teacher conference despite her exhaustion. Now at 78, she was fading, her mind clouded by dementia, her body weakened by a recent fall. "You should sing again," Elena had said suddenly, with surprising clarity, as Maya wiped a bit of oatmeal from her chin. Maya had frozen, shocked by both her mother's lucidity and the subject. "Mama, I haven't really sung in years." "Nonsense," Elena had said, her accent thickening as it always did when she was passionate about something. "You sing while you clean my room. You sing in the shower." "I hear you." Maya had looked away, embarrassed. "That's different." "I saw the poster," Elena continued, gesturing weakly toward the community bulletin board visible through the doorway. "For the talent show? You should enter," Maya had laughed softly. "Mama, those shows are for teenagers or professionals, not for hotel maids with limps." Elena's eyes had flashed then, showing a glimpse of the woman she used to be. "Is that what you think of yourself? A maid with a limp? That's not who you are." The memory faded as Maya finished the form. She handed it back to the volunteers, who told her to return the following Saturday for the preliminary round. As she limped back toward the exit, she passed a group of young performers practicing their dance routine in the lobby. They were all matching outfits, all perfect teeth and confidence. One of them glanced at Maya, then quickly looked away, as if her ordinary appearance might be contagious. Outside, Maya waited 20 minutes for the bus that would take her back to the small apartment she shared with her mother, before Elena's health had deteriorated. The nursing home took most of Maya's salary, leaving little for luxuries or even necessities. Their old car had died months ago, and there was no money to fix it. As the bus rattled along, Maya stared out the window at the town where she had lived her entire life. Oak Ridge wasn't large, but it wasn't tiny either. Just big enough that people could forget about you if you stayed quiet enough. And Maya had been very quiet since the accident. Before that day 15 years ago, things had been different. Maya had been studying music at the community college, singing in the choir, even performing at local coffee shops on weekends. People had told her she had a gift. Her voice, they said, could make you forget your troubles or remember them in a way that somehow hurt less. Her father had been her biggest fan, driving her to performances, recording every show on his old camcorder. Then came the icy road, the truck that couldn't stop, the screeching tires and shattering glass. Her father was gone instantly. Maya spent weeks in the hospital, months in physical therapy. The doctors told her she was lucky to be walking at all. Her studies, her music, her dreams, they all took a backseat to survival, to helping her mother cope with the loss of her husband, to finding work that would pay the bills. She found it at the Lakeside Inn, a mid-range hotel that catered to business travelers and the occasional tourist. For 15 years, she had cleaned rooms, changed sheets, scrubbed toilets, and folded tiny soaps into neat little packages. The work was hard but honest, and the manager was understanding about her need for flexible hours as her mother's health declined. At her apartment, Maya unlocked the door and stepped into the quiet space. It felt emptier now without her mother's presence. She hung up her coat, fed the elderly cat that had been her mother's companion, and sat down at the small kitchen table. From a drawer, she pulled out a notebook, old and battered with pages falling out. Inside were songs she had written over the years. Some dated back to before the accident, full of hope and possibility. Others came from darker times, written late at night when sleep wouldn't come. And some were newer, created in stolen moments between responsibilities, capturing glimpses of beauty she still found in the world despite everything. Maya flipped through the pages, wondering which song she should perform. Something caught her eye, a piece she had written 6 months ago after a rare good day with her mother, when Elena had remembered Maya's name all day, and they had looked through old photo albums together. The song was about memory, about how love persists even when the mind begins to falter. She hummed a few bars, testing it out. Her voice was rusty from disuse, at least in any formal way, but the melody came back easily, flowing through her like an old friend returning after a long absence. The cat jumped onto the table and nudged her hand, as if offering encouragement. Maya smiled and stroked its graying fur. "What do you think, Whiskers? Do I have any chance at all?" she asked. The cat purred in response, eyes closing in contentment. Over the next few days, Maya practiced whenever she could. Early mornings before her shift, late nights after visiting her mother, in the shower, while folding laundry. The more she sang, the stronger her voice became, muscle memory bringing back techniques she had learned long ago. Her coworker Jade noticed the change. "You're different lately," she said as they cleaned adjoining rooms at the hotel. "Happier, maybe?" Maya shrugged, embarrassed. "Just trying something new." "Well, it looks good on you," Jade said, spraying cleaner on a bathroom mirror. "Whatever it is." The night before the preliminary round, Maya visited her mother. Elena was having one of her confused days, mistaking Maya for a nurse, then for her own sister who had passed away years ago. It was painful, watching the woman who had once been her rock drift further away. As Maya was preparing to leave, Elena suddenly grabbed her hand with surprising strength. "The singing," she said clearly. "Don't forget about the singing." Maya's eyes widened. "You remember?" Elena's gaze drifted, focus already slipping away. "Your voice is a gift," she murmured. "From God. Don't waste it." Then she was gone again, back into the fog that increasingly claimed her mind. That night Maya couldn't sleep. She stood in front of the small mirror in her bathroom, studying herself. She saw the lines around her eyes, the streak of gray in her hair, the slight slope of her shoulder from years of compensating for her injured hip. "Who do you think you are?" she whispered to her reflection. But another voice, her mother's voice, her father's voice, her own younger voice, whispered back, "You are more than what they see." When morning came, Maya dressed carefully in the nicest outfit she owned, a simple blue dress she wore to church on Sundays. She pulled her hair back neatly and even applied a touch of lipstick that Jade had given her for Christmas. It wasn't much, but it was all she had. As she limped toward the bus stop, a flyer for the talent show fluttered on a nearby telephone pole. "Discover Oak Ridge's hidden stars," it proclaimed in bright letters. Maya paused, looking at it. Then she straightened her shoulders as much as her body would allow. She might not look like a star to most people, but for once she was going to shine anyway. Maya arrived at the Oak Ridge Community Theater 2 hours before her scheduled audition time. The parking lot was already filling with cars much nicer than anything she'd ever owned. Mothers helped young children carry costume bags. Teenagers huddled in groups practicing dance moves. Everyone seemed to belong here except her. She sat on a bench outside watching people come and go. Her heart hammered in her chest. What had seemed like a brave decision in the quiet of her apartment now felt like madness in the bright light of day. $5,000 or not, she didn't belong here among these people with their confidence and their proper training. "You can still leave," she whispered to herself. No one would notice or care if she never showed up. Just as she was gathering her courage to walk away, a school bus pulled up. The doors opened and out poured a dozen elderly people, all wearing matching blue jackets with Oak Ridge Senior Center embroidered on the back. Among them was Mrs. Chen, who had lived in the apartment next to Maya and her mother for years before moving to the senior center. "Maya, is that you, dear?" Mrs. Chen called out, squinting through her thick glasses. "What are you doing here?" Maya stood awkwardly, one hand still gripping the bench for support. I'm in the talent show," she admitted, the words feeling strange on her tongue. Mrs. Chen's face lit up. "Wonderful. We're the audience. The senior center got free tickets." She lowered her voice to a stage whisper. "We're supposed to be impartial, but I'll be rooting for you." Before Maya could respond, a harried-looking woman with a clipboard appeared at the theater entrance. "Preliminary round contestants, please check in inside," she called out. Mrs. Chen gave Maya's hand a squeeze. "Go show them what you can do, dear." Inside, the theater buzzed with nervous energy. At the check-in table, a volunteer handed Maya a number, 47, and directed her to a waiting area backstage. The space was crowded with performers of all types. Dancers stretching in corners, magicians practicing card tricks, musicians tuning instruments. Maya found a quiet spot against the wall and took out her phone to look at the lyrics she'd typed up. The song was called "Still Here," a ballad about perseverance in the face of loss. She had practiced it so many times that the words were etched into her memory, but reading them calmed her nerves. A young boy with a violin case sat down beside her. He couldn't have been more than 10 years old, with a serious expression that made him look older. "Are you nervous?" he asked Maya, fidgeting with the clasp on his case. Maya nodded. "Very. My teacher says being nervous means you care about doing well," he said solemnly. "So being nervous is actually good." Despite her anxiety, Maya smiled. "Your teacher sounds smart." The boy nodded. "She is. She also says to imagine everyone in the audience is just a bunch of potatoes sitting in chairs." Maya laughed, the sound surprising her. She couldn't remember the last time she had laughed like that. "Potatoes, huh?" "Yep." The boy opened his case and took out his violin. "It helps a little." They sat in comfortable silence until a stagehand appeared. "Numbers 45 through 50, you're on deck. Follow me." Maya's mouth went dry as she stood and followed the stagehand to the wings of the stage. From there, she could see into the auditorium. It was larger than she had imagined, with rows of seats stretching back farther than she could clearly make out. The judges sat at a table in front, 3 people with serious expressions and notepads. "Number 45, you're up," the stagehand called, and a teenage girl with a guitar walked confidently onto the stage. Maya watched as performers 45 and 46 completed their acts. The girl with the guitar sang a popular song with a strong, clear voice. A pair of twin boys performed an impressive juggling act. The audience applauded enthusiastically for both. Number 47, Maya Rodriguez. Her legs felt like they were made of cement as she made her way to center stage. The bright lights blinded her, making it hard to see the audience clearly, which was perhaps a blessing. She could make out the shapes of people, hear the rustling as they shifted in their seats. As she stepped up to the microphone, she could feel them noticing her limp, her plain appearance, her age. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Someone in the front row whispered something to their neighbor, and both snickered. One of the judges, a man in his 50s with salt and pepper hair, looked up from his notes. "Name and what you'll be performing today?" Maya leaned toward the microphone. "Maya Rodriguez. I'll be singing an original song called Still Here." More whispers. Original songs were a risk. Most contestants stuck to popular music that the audience already knew and loved. The judge nodded to the pianist who sat waiting off to the side. "Whenever you're ready, Ms. Rodriguez." Maya handed her sheet music to the pianist, a young woman who glanced at it briefly and nodded. Maya took a deep breath and closed her eyes for a moment, trying to center herself. When she opened them again, she noticed Mrs. Chen and the other seniors filing into seats in the back. Mrs. Chen gave her an encouraging thumbs up. The pianist began to play the gentle introduction, the notes floating up into the high ceilings of the theater. Maya counted the beats in her head just as she had practiced in her kitchen 100 times. Then she began to sing. The first note came out shaky, uncertain. Someone in the middle rows coughed loudly. Maya forced herself to continue, focusing on the words, on the meaning behind them. The song was about her father, about her mother, about herself, about how even when everything is taken away, something remains. Even when the world pushes you into invisibility, you are still here. As she reached the end of the first verse, she risked a glance at the judges. The man who had spoken to her was watching with a neutral expression. The woman beside him was writing something down without looking up. The third judge, a younger man with glasses, was staring at her with a slight furrow in his brow, as if trying to solve a puzzle. The chorus approached, the part where the melody climbed higher. Maya had worried about this section, whether her voice would hold the notes after years of disuse. But as she sang, something shifted inside her. The nerves fell away. The audience, the judges, even the competition itself seemed less important than the story she was telling through her song. Her voice grew stronger, more confident. The limp, the worn dress, the gray in her hair, none of it mattered in this moment. There was only the music, only the truth she was sharing. By the second verse, the whispering had stopped. The coughing, the rustling, the small distractions of an uninterested audience all faded to silence. Maya couldn't see their faces clearly through the lights, but she could feel a shift in the room, a collective holding of breath. As she approached the bridge of the song, the part where the music swelled and the lyrics spoke most directly about loss and resilience, Maya closed her eyes again. She thought of her father's laugh, her mother's hands, the life she had once imagined for herself and the one she had actually lived. There was beauty and pain in both. When she opened her eyes, she was surprised to see the woman judge looking up from her notes, pen frozen over the paper. The young boy with the violin was watching from the wings, violin clutched forgotten in his hands. The final chorus came, and Maya let everything she had been holding inside for 15 years pour into it. Her voice filled the theater, reaching all the way to the back row where Mrs. Chen sat with tears streaming down her wrinkled cheeks. As the last note faded, there was a moment of complete silence. Then, from somewhere in the middle of the audience, a single person began to clap. Another joined in and another. Soon the entire theater was filled with applause, not the polite, obligatory kind that some of the previous performers had received, but genuine, enthusiastic appreciation. The judge with the glasses was nodding, a small smile on his face. The woman judge had finally set down her pen. Even the man with the salt and pepper hair, whose expression remained professionally neutral, was watching Maya with new interest. "Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez," he said when the applause finally died down. "That was unexpected." Maya wasn't sure if that was a compliment, but she nodded and made her way off the stage, her limp more pronounced now that the adrenaline was wearing off. As she passed the boy with the violin, he whispered, "That was better than potatoes." She smiled at him, then continued to the backstage area where she sat down heavily on a folding chair, her legs suddenly weak. Around her, other contestants prepared for their turns, but a few paused to glance her way with new respect in their eyes. A stagehand approached with a bottle of water. "The judges want all contestants to stay until the end," she said, handing Maya the bottle. "They'll announce who moves on to the next round after the last performance." Maya thanked her and took a long drink. Whether she advanced or not, she had done what seemed impossible this morning. She had stood on that stage and made herself visible again. For 2 hours she sat backstage listening to the remaining performances. Some were very good. A flamenco dancer whose feet moved so quickly they blurred. A cellist who played with such emotion that Maya felt tears spring to her eyes. The competition was indeed stiff, as the young man at registration had warned her. Finally, the last performer completed their act, and all contestants were called to gather on stage. Maya stood with the others under the bright lights, trying not to fidget as the head judge stepped forward with a list in his hand. The following performers have advanced to the final round, which will take place next Saturday evening, he announced. When I call your number, please step forward. He began reading numbers. 12, 23, 31. Maya held her breath, trying not to hope too much. 47. For a moment she thought she had misheard. But the boy with the violin nudged her gently, and she realized her number had indeed been called. Somehow, against all odds, she was moving forward in the competition. As she stepped forward with the other advancing contestants, she caught sight of Mrs. Chen in the audience, beaming and giving her another thumbs up. For the first time in 15 years, Maya felt a flicker of something she had almost forgotten. Pride. The week between the preliminary round and the finals passed in a blur for Maya. News of her performance had spread through the small town of Oak Ridge like wildfire. At the hotel, guests she had cleaned rooms for over years suddenly noticed her, some even asking if she was that singing maid they'd heard about. Jade cornered her in the supply closet on Tuesday morning. "Why didn't you tell me?" she demanded, hands on her hips but a smile playing at her lips. "I had to hear from my cousin who was in the audience that my coworker brought the house down at the talent show." Maya folded towels, embarrassed by the attention. "I didn't want to make a big deal of it. I probably won't win anyway." Jade rolled her eyes. "My cousin said you were the best one there. She said people actually stopped looking at their phones when you started singing. Do you know how rare that is these days?" Later that day, Maya's manager, Mr. Wilson, called her into his office. Her stomach dropped. In 15 years, she had never been called to his office except for her annual review. Had she done something wrong? Was he upset about her sudden minor celebrity status? Mr. Wilson was a serious man who rarely smiled. He gestured for her to take a seat across from his desk. "I understand you're in the finals of the talent show," he said without preamble. Maya nodded, her hands twisting in her lap. "The final round is this Saturday evening at 8, correct?" Another nod. Mr. Wilson consulted the work schedule on his computer. "You're down to work until 9 that night." He paused, then added, "I've adjusted the schedule. You're now off at 4. Maya blinked in surprise. "Thank you, but I don't need special treatment. I can work my regular—" Mr. Wilson held up a hand to stop her. "It's not special treatment, Ms. Rodriguez. It's recognition of 15 years of showing up on time, never calling in sick without good reason, and doing your job thoroughly and without complaint." His expression softened slightly. "Besides, my wife was at the preliminary round. She said I'd be a fool not to give you time to prepare." As Maya left the office, stunned by this unexpected support, her phone buzzed with a text from the nursing home. Her mother was having a difficult day and asking for her. Maya hurried there as soon as her shift ended. Elena was agitated when Maya arrived, confused about where she was and why. The nurse explained that these episodes were becoming more frequent. Maya sat beside her mother's bed, holding her hand and speaking softly until Elena calmed down. "I made it to the finals, Mama," Maya told her, unsure if Elena was lucid enough to understand. "Of the talent show, just like you said I should." Elena stared at her for a long moment, her eyes cloudy. Then, surprisingly, clarity seemed to wash over her face. "Of course you did," she said, squeezing Maya's hand. "You have his voice." "His?" Maya asked gently. "Your father's," Elena said. "Not the sound, but the soul in it. He could make people feel things with his voice, too." She closed her eyes. He would be proud. The memory of her father hit Maya hard. Antonio Rodriguez had worked construction during the day, but evenings often found him playing guitar and singing in their small living room. He had been the one to teach Maya her first songs, to encourage her when she was shy about performing in school talent shows. The accident had taken more than just his life. It had taken the music from their home. "I miss him," Maya said softly. Elena's eyes remained closed, but a tear slipped down her wrinkled cheek. "Sing for him on Saturday," she whispered. "Sing for both of us." On Thursday, Maya received an email from the talent show organizers. The finalists were expected to perform 2 songs, their preliminary piece and a new selection. The email also mentioned that local media would be covering the event, and a talent scout from the city would be among the judges. Maya felt a surge of panic. 2 songs? She had poured everything into Still Here. What would she perform for her second piece? That night, after visiting her mother, Maya sat at her kitchen table with her old notebook open in front of her. She flipped through pages of lyrics written over years of quiet nights alone. Some were too personal, others not quite finished. None seemed right for this moment. Then her phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. "Hello?" she answered cautiously. "Is this Maya Rodriguez?" a woman's voice asked. "This is Lisa Parker from the Oak Ridge Gazette. I'd love to interview you for a feature we're doing on the talent show finalists." Maya almost declined out of habit. For 15 years, she had lived her life trying not to be noticed. But the image of her mother's face, the memory of the audience's applause, pushed her to say yes. The next day, Lisa met her at a coffee shop downtown. The reporter was younger than Maya expected, probably in her early 30s, with a friendly smile and quick, observant eyes. "I was at the preliminary round," Lisa said as they sat with their drinks. "Your performance was remarkable. But what everyone wants to know is, where have you been hiding all these years? Did you train professionally?" Maya told her story. The community college music courses, the small performances at local venues, the accident that changed everything. She found herself sharing more than she had intended. About her father's death, her mother's declining health, the years spent cleaning hotel rooms while her dreams collected dust. "The accident left me with physical scars," Maya explained, gesturing to her leg. "But the bigger damage was inside. I just stopped believing I had anything worth sharing." "And now?" Lisa asked. Maya considered the question. "Now I'm terrified," she admitted with a small laugh. "But also grateful. Even if I don't win, standing on that stage felt like coming home after a very long time away." Lisa scribbled notes, nodding. "What will you be performing for your second song?" "I'm still deciding," Maya said, not wanting to admit she had no idea. After the interview, Maya walked slowly through the town center, deep in thought. The question about her second song weighed on her. She passed the flower shop where her mother had once worked part-time, the elementary school she had attended as a child, the park where her father had pushed her on the swings. Oak Ridge had always been home. Even when it felt like the town had forgotten she existed, every street corner held memories, both happy and painful. As she reached the bus stop, an idea began to form. Perhaps her second song was already written in her heart, waiting to be given voice. Not about loss this time, but about home, about belonging, about finding your way back to yourself after being lost for so long. That night, she stayed up late, the words flowing onto the page easier than they had in years. She called the new song "This Small Town," a ballad about how the places and people that shape us remain part of who we are, even when we feel invisible to them. On Friday, Maya received another surprise. Jade and 3 other co-workers from the hotel showed up at her apartment after work. "We're your prep team," Jade announced, holding up a garment bag. "Can't have our star performer wearing just anything to the finals," Maya protested, but they ignored her, filling her tiny apartment with chatter and laughter as they helped her try on a simple but elegant blue dress that belonged to Jade's sister. "It's not new," Jade said, "but it's nicer than anything in your closet, no offense." "None taken," Maya said, touching the soft fabric reverently. "But I can't accept this. It's just a loan," Jade insisted. "Besides, when you win that $5,000, you can buy 10 dresses if you want." Another coworker, Lou, had brought makeup and insisted on giving Maya a quick lesson. "Nothing dramatic," she promised. "Just enough to make your eyes pop under those stage lights." The third coworker, Tina, was apparently good with hair and showed Maya a simple style that looked elegant but wouldn't require much effort. The fourth, David from maintenance, had come along mainly for moral support, but revealed he had been a pianist in college. He offered to listen to Maya practice and give feedback. For the first time in 15 years, Maya's apartment was filled with friends and music. As she sang her new song for them, she saw in their faces what she had seen in the audience at the preliminary round, that moment of connection when a song touches something true in the listener. When they finally left, promising to be in the front row the next evening, Maya felt both exhausted and energized. She had forgotten what it was like to be part of something, to have people who believed in you. Saturday morning dawned bright and clear. Maya woke early, her nerves already humming. She visited her mother first thing, hoping to find her lucid. Elena was having a good day. She was sitting up in bed looking through an old photo album one of the nurses had brought out for her. "There you are," she said when Maya entered. "My star." Maya sat beside her, throat tight with emotion. "I'm singing tonight, Mama, the finals." Elena nodded. I know. The nurse told me. She turned a page in the album and pointed to a faded photograph of Maya at about 12, singing in a school choir. You were always meant for this. Maya took her mother's hand. I wish you could be there. I will be, Elena said firmly. Here. She pressed her hand against Maya's heart. They spent the morning looking through old photos, Elena surprising Maya with her clarity and memory. It was a gift, these increasingly rare moments when her mother was fully present. As Maya prepared to leave, Elena reached out and touched her face. Remember what your father always said? Maya nodded, tears threatening. Sing like the words are yours and no one else's. That's right, Elena whispered. Because they are. Back at her apartment, Maya practiced both songs one last time, then began getting ready. She put on the borrowed dress, did her makeup following Lou's instructions, and styled her hair as Tina had shown her. Looking in the mirror, she hardly recognized herself, not because of the dress or makeup, but because of the light in her eyes that had been missing for so long. As the afternoon light began to fade, Maya took a deep breath and picked up her purse. It was time to head to the theater, to the stage, to the moment she had been both dreading and longing for. Whatever happened tonight, whether she won or lost, whether the audience cheered or not, she had already reclaimed something she thought was lost forever. Her voice, and with it, a piece of herself. The Oak Ridge Community Theater buzzed with energy as Maya made her way through the back entrance. Unlike the preliminary round, tonight the theater was packed. A sold-out sign hung on the ticket window, and volunteers rushed around making last-minute preparations. Backstage was organized chaos. The 10 finalists had been given a small shared dressing room with mirrors lining one wall. When Maya entered, conversations paused briefly as the other performers looked up. The young boy with the violin, she now knew his name was Peter, waved enthusiastically. You came, he said, as if he had been worried she might change her mind. Maya smiled, finding his excitement contagious. I did. How are you feeling? Nervous, Peter admitted. But my mom says that's normal. Are you nervous too? Before Maya could answer, a woman in a headset appeared at the door. 15 minutes until places, everyone. The show will begin promptly at 8. Please check the performance order posted on the wall. Maya looked at the list. She would be performing 7th out of 10. Not the ideal spot. Research showed that judges tended to remember the first and last performers best, but at least she wouldn't have to wait through the entire show with her nerves building. As she was applying a final touch of lipstick, her phone buzzed with a text from Jade. Front row center, as promised. You've got this. Maya peeked through the curtain. The theater had transformed since the preliminary round. Professional lighting had been set up. A local florist had provided arrangements for the stage. The judges' table now had 5 chairs instead of 3. The regular panel plus the talent scout and the mayor of Oak Ridge. And there, in the front row, were Jade, Lou, Tina, and David, all dressed up and grinning with anticipation. Next to them sat Mr. Wilson and his wife, a surprise Maya hadn't expected. Beyond them, the theater was filled with faces both familiar and strange, all waiting to be moved, to be entertained, to witness something special. The house lights dimmed, and the show began. The first performer was a young woman who sang a powerful operatic piece that showcased her impressive vocal range. The audience applauded enthusiastically. The second was a dance troupe of teenage girls who moved with precision and energy. One by one, the competitors took the stage, each more talented than Maya remembered from the preliminary round. Everyone had stepped up their game for the finals. Peter played his violin piece flawlessly, his small fingers flying over the strings with surprising dexterity. Backstage, Maya paced carefully, mindful of her limp but too anxious to sit still. She ran through the lyrics of both songs in her head, worried she might forget a line despite having written them herself. The borrowed dress felt suddenly too fancy, too pretentious. Who was she kidding? These other performers were real artists, people who had devoted their lives to their craft. She was just a hotel maid with a notebook full of scribbled lyrics and a voice that hadn't been properly trained in 15 years. Ms. Rodriguez, you're up next. The stagehand's voice cut through her spiral of doubt. Maya took a deep breath, remembering her mother's words. Sing like the words are yours and no one else's. The performer before her, a skilled guitarist playing an instrumental piece, finished to enthusiastic applause. As he exited the stage, he gave Maya an encouraging nod. "Ladies and gentlemen," the host announced, "our next finalist is a woman whose preliminary performance has become something of a local sensation. Please welcome back to the stage, Maya Rodriguez." The applause that greeted her as she walked onto the stage was warmer than it had been the first time, less tinged with skepticism. Maya could see faces watching her with genuine interest now, waiting to see if she could recapture the magic of her previous performance. She approached the microphone, the bright lights once again making it difficult to see beyond the first few rows. She could make out Jade and her co-workers, their faces expectant and encouraging. "Good evening," Maya said, her voice stronger than she expected. "For my first song, I'll be performing Still Here, the piece I shared with you last week." The pianist began to play the now familiar introduction, and Maya closed her eyes briefly, letting the music center her. When she began to sing, her voice was clear and confident from the first note. The nervousness that had plagued her backstage fell away, replaced by the pure joy of giving voice to her own words, her own truth. This time, as she sang, she allowed herself to feel every emotion behind the lyrics, the grief of loss, the struggle to keep going, the quiet pride of survival. The audience was with her from the beginning, completely silent except for the occasional sound of someone sniffling back tears. When the final note faded, there was that breathless moment of silence again, followed by thunderous applause. Maya saw Jade and Lou on their feet cheering. Even Mr. Wilson was clapping with genuine appreciation. The host approached as the applause died down. "Wonderful, simply wonderful," he said. "And I understand you'll be performing an original song for your second piece as well?" Maya nodded. "Yes, a new song I wrote just this week called This Small Town." "Well, we're all eager to hear it," the host said, then turned to the audience. "Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear another round of applause for Maya Rodriguez before our next performer." Backstage again, Maya felt lighter, more confident. She had gotten through the first song without incident, and the audience's reaction had been even stronger than before. Now she had about 40 minutes to wait before her second performance, enough time for her nerves to settle. Peter found her by the water cooler. "You were amazing," he said with a child's unfiltered honesty. "I bet you'll win," Maya smiled. "Thank you, but you were pretty amazing yourself. I've never seen anyone your age play the violin like that." He shrugged. "I practice a lot. My dad says talent is just the starting point. It's the work you put in that matters." He studied her curiously. "How long have you been singing?" "All my life in one way or another," Maya said. "Though not seriously for many years. Why not?" The directness of childhood. Maya considered how to answer. "Life got complicated. Sometimes we put our dreams aside to deal with other things." Peter nodded solemnly. "My mom says that happens to grown-ups a lot. She says that's why it's important to remember what you love, so you can find your way back to it." "Your mom sounds very wise," Maya said, touched by the unexpected wisdom from this child. The remaining performers took their turns, and then it was time for the second round to begin. The format was the same. Each finalist would perform their second piece in the same order as the first round. Maya watched from the wings as the others showcased different facets of their talent. The opera singer chose a contemporary pop ballad, showing her versatility. The dance troupe performed a more technically challenging routine. Peter played a lively folk tune that had the audience clapping along. When it was Maya's turn again, she felt an odd calm settle over her. Whatever happened tonight, she had already won something precious. The courage to share her voice again, to be seen and heard after so many years of invisibility. "For my second song," she said into the microphone, "I'd like to share something very new. I wrote this just a few days ago, thinking about how the places and people who shape us are always part of who we are, even when we feel forgotten or unseen." The pianist began the gentle introduction to This Small Town. Unlike Still Here, which was about loss and survival, this song was about belonging, about the invisible threads that connect us to our homes and to each other. As she sang about ordinary streets holding extraordinary memories, about neighbors who become family, about finding your way back to yourself in familiar places, Maya felt something shift in the room. People in the audience began to nod, to smile in recognition. In a small town like Oak Ridge, everyone knew what it was to be both known and overlooked, to love a place even when it sometimes felt too small for your dreams. The song touched something universal in its specificity. The time Maya reached the bridge, the part where the melody soared above the piano, accompaniment, something remarkable was happening in the theater. People were swaying gently in their seats, some with eyes closed, others with tears streaming down their faces. In the front row, Jade reached out to squeeze Lou's hand. Mr. Wilson's wife rested her head on his shoulder. When Maya sang the final lines, "In this small town where I thought I'd disappeared, I found myself waiting, patient all these years." Her voice was full of both vulnerability and strength. As the last note hung in the air, she opened her eyes to see the entire audience rising to their feet. The standing ovation lasted longer than any other of the night. The host had to wait almost 2 full minutes before the applause died down enough for him to speak. "Well," he said, visibly moved, "I think it's safe to say that touched a chord with many of us tonight. Thank you, Maya Rodriguez, for sharing your gift with us." Maya made her way backstage, legs trembling slightly from the emotional exertion of the performance. The other finalists were waiting, many with admiration plain on their faces. Peter gave her a thumbs up that reminded her of Mrs. Chen. "All finalists to the stage, please," the stagehand called. "The judges are ready to announce their decision." The 10 performers lined up across the stage, blinking in the bright lights. The head judge, the man with salt and pepper hair, stood at the microphone with an envelope in his hand. "Before I announce the winner," he said, "I want to thank all of our finalists for sharing their remarkable talents with us tonight. In my 15 years of judging this competition, I can honestly say this has been the highest level of talent we've ever seen." He opened the envelope slowly, deliberately extending the moment of suspense. "And the winner of this year's Oak Ridge Community Talent Show, along with the $5,000 prize, is..." Maya held her breath, suddenly aware of her heartbeat thundering in her ears. "Contestant number 47, Maya Rodriguez." For a moment, Maya couldn't move. She felt Peter nudging her forward, heard the audience erupting in cheers, saw Jade and the others jumping up and down in the front row. But it all seemed to be happening at a distance, as if in a dream. Then the host was guiding her to the microphone, the head judge was handing her a check, and someone was placing a small trophy in her hands. Camera flashes popped from the audience. "Would you like to say a few words?" the host asked. Maya looked out at the sea of faces, neighbors, strangers, friends new and old, all smiling back at her with genuine warmth. She thought of her mother in the nursing home, her father watching from wherever he was, all the years of silence and invisibility that had somehow led her to this moment of being truly seen. "Thank you," she said simply, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for listening." The morning after the talent show, Maya woke to sunlight streaming through her bedroom window. For a moment, she lay still, wondering if it had all been a dream. Then she noticed the small trophy on her nightstand and the oversized check propped against her dresser, and reality washed over her. She had won. All of it had really happened. Her phone buzzed with text messages and notifications. The local newspaper had already posted an article about the show online, with her picture front and center. Social media was buzzing with clips of her performance that audience members had recorded. Friends she hadn't spoken to in years were reaching out to congratulate her. Maya sat up slowly, overwhelmed by the attention. For someone who had spent 15 years trying to be invisible, suddenly being the talk of the town was jarring. She wasn't sure how to feel about it. Her first thought was of her mother. She needed to tell Elena about the win, though she wasn't sure if her mother would understand or even remember that Maya had been in a competition. Still, she had to try. After a quick shower, Maya got dressed and caught the bus to Green Meadows Nursing Home. The receptionist greeted her with a wide smile. "There she is, our local celebrity," she said. "Everyone's talking about your performance last night." Maya thanked her awkwardly and headed to her mother's room. She found Elena sitting in her chair by the window, looking out at the garden. When Maya entered, Elena turned slowly. "Maya," she said, her voice clear. "It was going to be a good day." "Hi, Mama," Maya said, sitting beside her and taking her hand. "I have something to tell you. About the talent show." Elena's eyes brightened. "You won," she stated simply, as if it were an established fact. Maya blinked in surprise. "How did you know?" Elena smiled, a shadow of her old self shining through the fog of her condition. The nurse showed me the video this morning. Someone posted it online. She squeezed Maya's hand. Your father would have been so proud. Tears welled in Maya's eyes. I wish he could have been there. He was, Elena said firmly. In your voice. In your songs. He was there. They sat together quietly for a while, Maya telling her mother about the details of the evening. The packed theater, the standing ovation, the moment they called her name. Elena listened intently, occasionally asking a question or nodding in understanding. As Maya was preparing to leave, Elena became suddenly agitated. The money, she said. What will you do with the money? Maya had been thinking about this since the moment she won. Part of it will help with your care, she explained. And the rest, she hesitated. I'm not sure yet. Elena reached out and touched Maya's face, her eyes suddenly fierce with clarity. Not just for me, she insisted. For you too. For the music. On her way home, Maya thought about her mother's words. For 15 years, every decision she had made was about survival, paying bills, caring for her mother, keeping their small world from falling apart. The idea of doing something for herself, for her passion, felt almost foreign. When she reached her apartment building, she found Mrs. Chen waiting for her in the lobby. The elderly woman enveloped her in a tight hug. I knew it, Mrs. Chen exclaimed. I told everyone at the senior center you would win. We're all so proud of you, dear. Maya thanked her, touched by the woman's enthusiasm. As they chatted, Mrs. Chen mentioned something that caught Maya's attention. The community center is looking for someone to teach a singing class for seniors, she said. Nothing fancy, just once a week. Good for the lungs and the spirit, the doctor says. I thought of you immediately. Maya had never considered teaching before. The idea of sharing her love of music with others was appealing. But the thought of standing in front of a group, being seen and heard on purpose, still made her nervous despite her recent success. I'm not sure I'm qualified, she said hesitantly. Mrs. Chen waved away her concern. Nonsense. After what I saw at that talent show, you're more than qualified. Just think about it. Later that afternoon, Maya's phone rang. It was Lisa Parker from the Oak Ridge Gazette, the reporter who had interviewed her before the finals. Congratulations, Lisa exclaimed. I'd love to do a follow-up interview with you for tomorrow's edition. Would you be available today? Maya agreed, and they arranged to meet at the same coffee shop as before. When she arrived, Lisa was already there, her notebook open and a recorder ready. So, Lisa began after they had settled with their drinks. How does it feel to be Oak Ridge's newest star? Maya laughed softly. Hardly a star, just someone who found her voice again after a long time. That's what makes your story so compelling, Lisa said. Everyone loves a comeback, a second chance. The video of your performance has over 50,000 views already, which is pretty remarkable for our small town. The interview continued, with Lisa asking thoughtful questions about Maya's journey and her plans for the future. When she asked about the prize money, Maya shared her intention to use part of it for her mother's care. And the rest? Lisa prompted. Maya took a deep breath. I'm thinking about recording some of my songs, she said, surprising herself with the admission. Nothing fancy, just a simple EP, and possibly teaching a singing class at the community center. As she said the words aloud, they felt right. Music had been her first love, her original path before life intervened. Perhaps it wasn't too late to find her way back, even if it looked different than she had once imagined. After the interview, Maya walked through the town center, noticing how people smiled at her or nodded in recognition as she passed. It was a strange feeling after years of being essentially invisible to most of them, not uncomfortable, just different. She found herself standing outside Harmony Music Shop, a small store that had been in Oak Ridge for decades. On impulse, she went inside. The shop smelled of wood and metal and possibility. Guitars hung on the walls alongside other instruments. Sheet music filled the shelves. The owner, an older man named Frank, who had taught half the town to play piano at some point, recognized her immediately. Maya Rodriguez, he said warmly. Congratulations on your win. What can I help you with today? Maya hadn't really had a purpose in mind when she entered, but standing there surrounded by instruments, she suddenly knew what she wanted. I'd like to buy a guitar, she said. Nothing too expensive, just something to accompany myself when I sing. Frank showed her several options, eventually helping her select a simple acoustic guitar that felt right in her hands. As he rang up the purchase, he mentioned that he had a small recording studio in the back of the shop. "Nothing fancy," he said, echoing her earlier words to Lisa. "But good enough for a simple EP if you're interested." By the time Maya returned to her apartment that evening, her mind was buzzing with possibilities. She sat at her kitchen table, the new guitar beside her, and wrote a to-do list, something she hadn't done in years beyond grocery items and bill due dates. "Recording session," she wrote. "Community center class proposal. Look into better care options for Mama." It felt strange and wonderful to be planning for something beyond mere survival. The next few weeks passed in a blur of activity. Maya continued working at the hotel, but her life was no longer defined by her job. She began spending Friday evenings at Frank's small studio, recording her songs one by one. The first few sessions were frustrating. Her voice would shake with nerves, or she would forget a lyric despite having written it herself. But Frank was patient, gently coaching her through the process. "Music is like any other muscle," he told her. "You're just getting back in shape." She also started teaching the singing class at the community center. Her first group consisted of 8 seniors, including Mrs. Chen, who was by far the most enthusiastic, if not the most talented. Their joy in singing, regardless of ability, reminded Maya why she had loved music in the first place, not for perfection, but for the pure emotional connection it created. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, she now left work early to visit her mother during the day instead of evenings. The $5,000 had allowed her to upgrade Elena's care plan, providing more personalized attention and activities. The staff reported that Elena seemed more engaged, especially when they played recordings of Maya's songs. 1 month after the talent show, Maya released her EP titled "Still Here." It contained 5 songs, including both pieces from the competition. Frank had helped her put it on streaming platforms and create a simple website. The local radio station played her title track during their local artist spotlight segment. Sales were modest but steady, primarily from people in Oak Ridge who had witnessed her journey firsthand. Maya received emails from listeners who connected with her lyrics, who found comfort or inspiration in her story of reclaiming her voice after loss. 6 weeks after the competition, Maya received a call from the talent scout who had been one of the judges at the finals. He didn't offer her a record deal or promise fame and fortune. Instead, he invited her to perform as an opening act for a more established artist who was coming through a nearby city the following month. "It's a small venue, only about 200 people," he explained. "But it's a start, a chance to share your music with a broader audience." Maya accepted, both terrified and excited by the opportunity. When she told her co-workers at the hotel, Jade immediately declared that they would all be there to support her. "Road trip," she announced. "We wouldn't miss it for anything." The night before her opening act performance, Maya visited her mother. Elena was having one of her increasingly rare lucid evenings. She listened intently as Maya explained about the upcoming show. "I'm nervous, Mama," Maya admitted. "What if they don't like my songs? What if I freeze up in front of all those strangers?" Elena took her daughter's hand, her grip surprisingly strong. "You will sing like the words are yours," she said, echoing the advice she had given before the talent show. "And for the right people, that will be enough." The next evening, as Maya stood backstage at the small venue in the city, she thought about how much had changed in just a few months. She was still a hotel maid with a limp who took care of her ailing mother. But she was also a singer, a songwriter, a teacher, a daughter reconnected with her heritage of music and resilience. When they called her name and she walked out onto the stage, guitar in hand, she saw Jade and her friends in the front row, cheering wildly. Behind them were faces she didn't recognize, strangers who had no idea about her journey but had come to listen anyway. Maya adjusted the microphone, took a deep breath, and began to sing. Her voice, clear and true, filled the room with stories that were hers alone, yet somehow belonged to everyone who had ever lost something, survived something, or found their way back to themselves after a long absence. She wasn't famous, and might never be, but in that moment, sharing her truth through music, Maya Rodriguez was exactly who she was meant to be. And that, she realized, was more than enough.